morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where things in Hollywood, for the most part, are still pretty slow. Yes, Tinseltown is still waking up after the holidays, and for that reason, two of our headlines have come out of the Golden Globes on Sunday. But our first headline, our most important razzle-dazzle headline, is courtesy of the fact that there is one movie that can't wait. It can't afford to take time off. And that is what's taking shape over at Lucasfilm as they quickly work to build their new empire, their new cinematic universe. And I'm talking about the young Han Solo movie, the Han Solo origin film. Now, this isn't supposed to come out until 2018, but we've been hearing a lot of buzz about casting young Han Solo, and they're actually down to a short list of actors. Remember, as I've told you before, when they say there's an open casting call or anyone could be cast, it always ends up being a name of people you've heard of before. You know, they usually just do that for a publicity angle, to get people, I'm surprised it never backfires, that people aren't like, you said someone new was going to play this character, and they're like, we lied. But the trick never gets old, apparently, because they've been doing it since, like, the days of Gone with the Wind. Open casting call, yet Vivian Leigh gets the title role. But anyway, with Han Solo, they have it down to a couple of guys. Now, I didn't make a separate video about this because apparently they're going to decide, like, in the next week. So why go in depth talking about who might be cast as Han Solo when we will know who is cast as Han Solo, if not next week, probably by the end of the month. So we'll talk about the names here, but the reason they're in such a rush is that there is a very strong rumor, and I think this timetable emphasizes the truth of this rumor, and that's that young Han Solo is going to show up and make a guest appearance in Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which is currently filming. That's pretty brilliant. It would go along with the timetable. That's going to take place, obviously, before Episode 4, A New Hope. But they're stealing plans for the Death Star, which eventually fall into the hands of Princess Leia, as we see at the beginning of Episode 4. So it makes sense that Han Solo would be somewhere in that picture. Now they have to be careful here. You don't want one of those like Star Wars baby situations where you're like, little did you know, everyone knew each other as children, or growing up, or before they met in the movies, or their paths were so close to crossing. I think that could be a little bit tricky to pull off, but we'll see. I think people are feeling very good about Star Wars right now, very forgiving in a number of ways, and so I think if they cast someone charismatic enough, and if this movie is well enough made, or well enough, I guess being the operative word there, people will be cool with it. But what I think is very interesting also is that perhaps in light of what happened in Episode 7, they're very eager to cast a new Han Solo and to have that actor take over PR duties from Harrison Ford, who obviously, as we all know, doesn't want to do them anymore, to the point where it's actually affecting decisions made within the franchise. So I think that's actually pretty brilliant, and if the casting's good enough, maybe it'll make me feel better about what happened in Episode 7. So anyway, who's on the list? Now, my choice, this is who I said should have it from the beginning when they first said who they were testing for the role, and I'm pleased to see that he made it to the short list. Now, as you might recall, I accurately predicted that Tom Holland would get the role of Spider-Man. I said he should be who they pick, and here I think they should pick Ansel Elgort from The Fault in Our Stars. Now, I know a lot of you are fighting a gag reflex right now because you don't want someone from The Fault in Our Stars in Star Wars. Well, I'm telling you that Ansel Elgort is very charismatic, wonderful actor, very personable. I think he's got a little Harrison Ford-ness to him, and I think he would really do a fantastic job in that role, as well as bring in a very large demographic that liked him so much in The Fault in Our Stars, which might not be into him, which might not be into a Star Wars movie. I'd also like to point out that Edgar Wright likes Ansel Elgort, because he, of course, is starring in Edgar Wright's upcoming film Drive, about a getaway driver who, listens, I think it's going to have a very good, strong soundtrack. It's basically Drive, I don't think it's actually not called Drive, but it's maybe, I forget the exact name of it, but it's like Ryan Gosling's Drive that he made with Nicholas Winding Refn. It's basically the same movie, but Edgar Wright's going to make with Ansel Elgort. But anyway, so that's who I'm rooting for. And by the way, also a lot of people said, well, what about Anthony and Gruber from The Age of Adeline, who played a young Harrison Ford uncannily? And when I reviewed the trailer for Age of Adeline, I too, like everyone else, was like, he looks a lot like young Harrison Ford. But it's not just looking like Harrison Ford. You have to be able to pull off the charisma. You have to be a good actor. You have to do the action sequences. You have to be able to handle the comedy. And I haven't seen anything from Anthony and Gruber after having seen The Age of Adeline that shows me that he can do that. So my money's on Ansel Elgort, and I predict he will walk away with the role. All right, so who else could potentially get it? Miles Teller. I thought that there was a lot of potential with Fantastic Four, but why would anyone hire Miles Teller for another genre film so close to the release of Fantastic Four? It makes absolutely no sense. Also, Miles Teller has a totally wrong persona for Han Solo. I think it's a ridiculous choice. They're also considering Dave Franco, James Franco's brother. You've seen him, of course, in Neighbors, Unfinished Business. I think he just isn't a big enough star to carry an entire movie himself. That could change, but I don't think that's the case right now. I wouldn't risk Star Wars having him prove it with my franchise. Jack Raynor, who was in Transformers, Age of Extinction, that last one, dating Mark Wahlberg's daughter. Scott Eastwood, Clint Eastwood's son from The Longest Ride. He's in the upcoming Suicide Squad movie. Again, a horrible choice. Don't see him leading the film. And I think you don't want the shadow. You're trying to get rid of the shadow of Harrison Ford. Why bring in the shadow of Clint Eastwood? Next up, Logan Lerman. I love Logan Lerman. I think Logan Lerman's actually a very talented young actor, but I think the idea of him being Han Solo is ridiculous. He looks nothing like the character, and I think that Logan Lerman, I don't really know if he can pull off the debonair aspects of Han Solo. I wouldn't pick him at all. He's more of a Luke Skywalker type, quite frankly. Then Emery Cohen from Brooklyn, he was also in The Place Beyond the Pines. I actually interviewed him. He's a very Marlon Brando-y type actor. I think he would also be a horrible choice for this role. I don't know who's casting this. Maybe whoever's casting it also wants Ansel Elgort to get the role, so they're putting up all these other horrible choices for Disney and Lucasfilm to look at. So they too will be like, yeah, I guess we should go with Ansel Elgort because all these other choices suck. And then Blake Jenner from Everybody Wants Some. And I believe that is a Jenner from the Jenner family, and I don't know why you would on earth you would want to bring that into your Star Wars franchise. So those are the choices. I think Ansel Elgort is the one and only correct choice for that role. I think he would do a wonderful job, and I'm curious. I'm surprised to see Disney moving so fast to kind of reestablish Han Solo with another talent. I think it's a smart move. I think it's an aggressive move, and I think it's the right move overall. So I'm curious to what you think. Do you think Harrison Ford can be not only easily replaced, but so quickly replaced? And who are you rooting for on this list? All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now, as I said, the second two stories are spinning out of the Golden Globes, and one has to, it really underscores the importance of winning at the Golden Globes. It's not just enough to get nominated. You need the wins to get momentum to carry you out of the ceremony. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about two Warner Brothers pictures, Creed and Mad Max Fury Road. Creed went away with a win for Sylvester Stallone, Best Supporting, while Mad Max went home empty-handed. So sure enough, what are people talking about this morning or Monday morning? They're talking about Creed 2 hitting theaters potentially in November 2017, but there is no discussion whatsoever about Mad Max Fury Road. Oh, the sadness. There are other factors at play, but I think the Golden Globes, the winning versus the losing, is a big factor. Now, of course, MGM is also behind Creed, and they're pushing very hard for Creed 2. They're actually the ones pushing more than Warner Brothers, and it's not guaranteed, but, they're making a lot of noise, as is Sylvester Stallone, as we've recently discussed. So MGM is driving this. Also, the finances are a lot sexier with Creed. Creed cost just $35 million to make. It's made $120 million worldwide. That's 3.5 times its budget. Mad Max Fury Road cost $150 million to make, a much larger investment, and is only a 2.5 return. And don't forget that you're only getting half of your box office. So in reality, Creed has only made Warner Brothers $60 million, but that's still almost double what they invested, whereas Mad Max Fury Road has only brought in about like 160, and that's only $10 million more than they spent. And this is not including advertising, by the way, on any of these films, so they're probably still in the red when it comes to Mad Max Fury Road. So of course they'd be more open to a Creed sequel because it's less of a risk and there's a better rate of return, as proven by the first movie. Now they're talking about who would potentially return. I said, after Sylvester Stallone forgot to thank Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan at the Golden Globes, I think that would really take away any remaining incentive Ryan Coogler has to return to the franchise. Unless they could maybe perhaps motivate him financially. Now, some of you have defended Sylvester Stallone, and I think that's very kind of you, and it shows how strong it is. But I want to point out to you that a lot of times people only remember what they've seen. They're not like, oh yeah, he was really nice to Ryan Coogler in a lot of interviews that nobody watched. They're like, the thing that was watched by millions of people, he forgot them. And so I think that it's very hard to overcome that. It's a sad truth. It's a sad truth of public life, and so we'll see what the outcome of that is. But Ryan Coogler is pretty much going to make the Black Panther Panther movie, so he can't really return. He could produce and he could oversee the film and help guide it creatively, but he's not going to be the driving force. I think that Michael B. Jordan must return. I think that if you want to have the fan base return, you have to follow his character's story, what's going to happen to him. Now, of course, you're going to want to see how his relationship progresses with Sylvester Stallone's Rocky, and of course, he's the one winning the award, so you want him to return as well. And Sylvester Stallone definitely wants to return. There's some talk of Carl Weathers also returning as the original Apollo Creed, but it would have to be in flashback sequences because obviously in the film, when it starts off, his character is dead. So I don't know if it's necessary to go back. I think it would be nice to have Carl Weathers in there, but I think this is all about continuing the very, very strong relationship between Michael B. Jordan and Sylvester Stallone in the first Creed film. I thought that their chemistry together was really moving and well done. So we'll see how that picture comes together. We'll see what Jordan's management team asks for, in terms of his salary and, any other perks. I think he certainly earned them, and I'll be curious to see how everybody returns to the negotiating table after what happened on Sunday with Sylvester Stallone. But I'm curious, what do you think of Creed 2 versus Mad Max Fury Road 2 or another Mad Max? Which one would you be more interested in seeing? But from a fan perspective, but then also from a business perspective, if you were Warner Brothers, would you be more eager to greenlight? And what do you think of such a good example of the importance of winning your award category at the award shows? All right, so the third story of the day also spins out of the Golden Globes, as promised, and that's that Quentin Tarantino is going around telling everybody that, yes, he does want to bring The Hateful Eight to the stage. It seems very much like a play when you're watching it, and he even has said that Harvey Weinstein first proposed that perhaps they do it as a play, and he did do it as a staged reading back when he was upset the screenplay had leaked, and so that's how it was actually first performed for the public. Now, I think the idea of a Quentin Tarantino play is wonderful, and I think that The Hateful Eight would have made a wonderful play, but it's now a movie that everybody has enjoyed, and it's actually doing pretty decent box office returns. So I do not think that he can bring it to the stage and get any strong response. Now, in his defense, Quentin Tarantino does want to cast different actors in the roles so you could see their interpretation of it. I don't know what he's going to do, like an all-female version of Hateful Eight, as Ricky Gervais said. That's all the rage these days. But I just think The Hateful Eight was so well done and so masterful that I have no interest in seeing any variation of it in terms of where it's performed or who's in it. I would like to see Quentin Tarantino maybe write another play, though, and I think he's definitely proven that his writing is a good fit for the stage and for singular locations, basically. So I'm curious, though, what do you think? Do you think also this could just be a ploy to help his awards chances, right? To add a little prestige to the mix and be like, I'm thinking of getting into the theater. Don't you love me now, awards voters? Especially since, Oscars skew so much older in particular, the voting bloc. So I'd be curious to see if this is just a strategy. But would you want to see The Hateful Eight as a stage play, or would you just be interested in maybe another stage play from Quentin Tarantino? All right, so those are the three stories of the day. Now, the viewer question comes from Ahani Deacon. And Ahani Deacon says, "Hello, Grace. I hope you see this. I did. My question is, do you think that Wonder Woman having her screen debut this year, in Batman v Superman, will that hurt Marvel? Some of my friends that are female are more excited about Wonder Woman and Batman v Superman than Captain Marvel in her own movie. Thank you, Grace, for being the best thing that I watch when I do my homework." Oh, that's so nice of you, and I hope your homework's going well today. I'm glad to keep you company, and I think that is a great question. Well, I think, for the most part, Marvel has no one to blame about the lack of excitement for a Captain Marvel movie than themselves. And that's in two fronts. And I think the Wonder Woman, you have to remember, it's not totally a fair fight because Wonder Woman's so iconic, and she has been for decades. From being, on the first cover of Ms. Magazine, she was adopted for the feminist movement, to having her own TV show, to really being something that DC is pushed in the merchandising arena very strong. Wonder Woman is very well established, even with non-comic book readers. So she's tough to compete with. I mean, she has been a popular Halloween costume for decades. But anyway, for men and women alike, by the way. But anyway, Captain Marvel is not particularly well established. In the comics, we'll talk about that in a moment, but even from a movie perspective and animation, she hasn't been very well established. Of course, I'm talking about animated movies. There's been no discussion of her in live action movies. They were going to have her at the very end of Avengers: Age of Ultron. I don't know how they would have justified that, because I'd be like, who just flew in the window? We should close that. But anyway, I think that also they pushed the movie back so many times that it's hard to get excited about a movie that is really still a moving target. Like, you have no idea when it's going to be released, and there's really been no one assigned to it. I mean, someone's working on the script, but we don't have a director. There's really been no strong talks about for who would be cast in the role. It seems quite a ways off. It doesn't really seem tangible. Whereas obviously Wonder Woman has an actor. It's got a director. They're currently shooting her solo movie, which you're going to see some stuff on January 19th when they have that special next week. So Wonder Woman is very much a real commodity. Now, as for the comics, Ms. Marvel, as she was originally known, now she's Captain Marvel. Well, so many different people have had that name. For instance, even now, Marvel Comics is pushing Kamala Khan as a Middle Eastern character in the Ms. Marvel role. Wonderful forward idea, very popular, extremely well received, and I think there are some people who would prefer to see Kamala Khan get her own movie instead of Carol Danvers. So I think that's hurting the excitement as well. Then as for Captain Marvel, the current alias that she's using, well, actually, that was originally a male character's alias, and then the first human to ever have it was Monica Rambeau, and we've talked about that. She is a character. She's still in the comics. She's had a couple of different names, but she happens to be an African-American character, so they could have had a little diversity there in terms of their female characters. Well, they have Zoe Saldana, but she's painted green, but they could have done that. That would be perhaps a direction they could have also gone in with Captain Marvel. So there are two different versions of the character they could have gone with, one with continuity, one with who's currently in the comics, and I think they would have been both very well received and been a little bit more daring than, I think one of the reasons that people said, well, why has Doctor Strange been whitewashed, is because it's yet another white character. And I think that people are really eager to see some outside of the box thinking when it comes to comic book movies already, because we've had so many. So, you really should be changing up the formula. So I think that any studio that does that is going to see a reward. And I think that DC is very aggressive in terms of diversification. And I think that that's one of the things that's going to put the odds in their favor in 2016. But I think that's why. I think that Wonder Woman, you have a situation where Wonder Woman is so well established both as a character and as an upcoming movie property, whereas in contrast, Captain Marvel is very poorly established as an upcoming movie and even as a character in the comics. I think that actually Carol Danvers, except for Carol Danvers fans, is really one of the least defined characters in comicdom, in Marvel comicdom currently. I mean, whenever her character shows up in a comic, I really feel no attachment because we haven't gotten to know her. She really is still very much a blank slate. So that's a good opportunity for whoever plays the character and whoever makes that movie, because they get to fill that in. But it's as much a curse as it is a blessing. So I'm curious, which movie are you more excited for? Which character are you more excited for? And why do you think there's a discrepancy? Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below today's top 3 stories. And, of course, Ajani's viewer question. Thank you so much. Again, good luck with your homework. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And be sure to write and let me know what you'd like to see covered tomorrow, any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.